Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach, and today we have with us David Freeman, who is the founder of Law Firm CultureShift. David, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Hey, so give us a little bit of background of yourself and what a law firm culture shift is. And I know we want to dive in deep and talk about what that looks like and what some, practical and tactical things that law firms can do to make that shift. But, what gives you then that foundation? I'm sure you are an attorney and that helped you speak the language.
Yeah, I mean, that certainly, brought me into this path. I practiced law for a short period of time. I actually found myself much more drawn to the entrepreneurial side of things. The idea of how can we put ingredients together to grow a business and grow a practice. And by background, one of the things I did is I tried to become a professional tennis player. And that was something, my little joke was the only court that I went to after law school was the tennis court. And so, this has put into me a sort of a high-performance mindset. And I look at lawyers, and lawyers are incredibly high-performing people, yet in this one area around growing their practice, this is an area that they don't necessarily have skills and training, yet they have this DNA of high performance. So there's a gap here that I look to fill. And so for the last 25 years, I have been laser focused on helping lawyers and firms individually and firm-wide to build a culture of business development, to fill in this piece that I often find is missing.
I hear similar things in different industries that are so similar to what you just said, like a chiropractor, like a doctor.
Yes.
And I'm sure through law school, you would say that the same thing that these doctors and chiropractors that come through their program all come out scratching their head going, wait a minute, we did like a weekend seminar on marketing our business. How are we supposed to do? We got MD or JD after our name, but now what? So to your point, yeah, you've got your head full of what you can do and we can go change the world, but nobody knows about you and you've got so much competition. So where do you start? Because I love your point about it's a culture shift. It's a mindset shift. It's not just something you do and check off the boxes.
It is an interesting piece. And, when you say a weekend seminar, in most law schools, there's not even the weekend seminar.
Oh, so I'm being generous.
You're very generous. I mean, this is really just, okay, we're throwing you out there. And, if you look at, there's the small, the medium, and the large firm market. Let's put it that way. And so for the small and solos, there's really not a lot of training out there for that. They've got to learn it on their own or go and find mentors. The medium to largish firms, they do have some marketing and professional development departments that do this kind of work. This is where I'm often brought in by them to provide this kind of training and foundational work. Yeah. It's just something that is just so missing. And the mindset piece is really interesting. And I find especially when you've got these young lawyers that have come from law school, they've often, don't have much entrepreneurial experience in their lives. They're students, they're academics. So they are not really ready for this world. And then when they're put into a large law firm, the large law firm is saying, we don't want you to go out there and look for business. You need to become a great lawyer. Now, that makes all the sense in the world. If they, all of a sudden, if some of these firms are not providing training, this lawyer now becomes a partner. They look around and go, wow, I'm not getting fed work anymore.
Yeah.
How am I supposed to do this? And from the first day of even in law school, they should be thinking about building their network, building the relationships, and keeping these alive, because at the end of the day, that is the stock and trade. How many high-value people do I know who have the potential to hire or refer me? I mean, that's the end of the day metric. And so to give them this kind of a mindset and a training that everybody you look around you, there are millions of people in the world. You've got to go and find the subset of these high-value people, economically valuable people.
You said
And that's
something really
the key.
interesting there
Yes.
that about knowing your craft. So let's think about it like this. Let's say that someone comes out of law school and they just somehow are a marketing rock star, but they just kind of, skated through and they're like a substandard attorney. Well, that's the opposite of what you're looking for, because you might bring in the clients, but you're not going to do a good job. You're not going to have happy clients. You're not going to get referrals. So first and foremost, you need to know your craft and know your all of the foundational things. But now that mindset shifts, and I feel like an attorney would be something in the realm of like in myself in the marketing world. I started off 10 years ago being all things to all people. If you want text message marketing, got it. If you want social media marketing, I can do it. But I became the jack of all trades, master of none. So until I became the authority positioning coach and do one thing good, now it's just so dialed in. So do you find that some attorneys go, I'm out of law school and now I can do anything for anybody in the legal, and they start spinning their wheels? So you need to fine tune and hone so that people can really understand what you can provide.
No, you've got it. I've got this program I call the 5 Habits of Successful Business Development. And habit number 1 is defining and differentiating yourself.
Yeah.
And so it is very much that. And, again, I work mainly with the mid to large law firms. So just the nature of them, they are already putting people into buckets to start to define and differentiate them. So there's a running start there.
Yeah.
But I'm very much with you that if you're really going to make some noise in the marketplace, if you're going to get seen above the din of everybody else, you've got to have a stake in the ground somewhere. You've got to be seen, if I can steal from you, to be an authority in a certain area. And that takes a lot of work. It takes, A, the mindset that I have to do it, and then B, what are the elements of doing that? And then from a firm perspective, how can they differentiate themselves? And it's very interesting. I have this little concept around differentiate your differentiators. So there are, let's say, boutique firms out there, employment firms, litigation firms, and so on. So they have done one slice of the differentiating scale. But there are a lot of them out there.
Yep. So
now how do you get to the next level of differentiation? Is it the way that you communicate? Is it, how you reach out to the marketplace? I remember one fellow was telling me a story about there was a proposal that was put out to a major men's retailer. And instead of sending in the typical RFP, they actually did the RFP in the format of the brochure that retailer put their clothing out in.
Ooh.
And so they were demonstrating through their way of communicating how much I care about you as a client. We know you, we see you, we've studied you.
Yeah, that's really powerful.
Their differentiation. And this is the game, right? We've got to figure out ways to stand out above and beyond everybody else who's out there in the marketplace, because it's a noisy place.
Because I've heard this. That's funny you brought up that example, and I think that's really powerful. It's kind of like when they teach people how to in sales. You want to ape, mimic, model, whatever you want to think of it as, mirror who you're talking to, whether it's in person or on the phone. And if you're talking to someone from New York and you were from West Virginia and you speak really slow, you might have a problem. So you might need to kind of adjust that. Well, same as that example you gave. In fact, I've seen examples where, if you want to market to attorneys and get their attention, do your marketing piece in the format of like a legal brief so that they glance at that. They're like, oh, yeah, I know that. Well, you were giving an example of an attorney that marketed based on what that company did. I think it's so powerful. In fact, it reminded me of this book in my library, and I know the guy's first name is Kerry, Kerry. I want to say Johnson, and he's a sales teacher, but he used to be a professional tennis player. So all of this comes together with what you were saying. But he teaches you how to do this, and he's like, okay, when you're looking at someone, if you ask a question and their eyes go up and to your right, that means it's up and to their left. So you need to pause, because they're not hearing anything you're saying right now, and they're thinking in the past about what you just said and formulating that. And then when they come back, now you can go, yeah, because the way that and I think it's so important to think about how our message is communicated from first glance to interpersonal relationship. And it's not just a simple, I'm an attorney, I solved this, come call me.
No, I think you're nailing it. And, just on that topic, it's interesting. There are studies that have been done, and there's one book called Spin Selling that is a classic, and they talk about it's over 100 factors that are involved in making an effective sale. And the number one factor out of all of them is asking a good question.
Yeah.
And, the challenge that I often find with lawyers is that, hey, we've got the answer. So I want to start telling you stuff.
Yeah.
But that doesn't work. So what you're talking about with the eyes looking up to the side, I have a personal measure because I coach thousands of lawyers. And one of my favorite personal measures is when I ask a question and there's A, the pause, and then B, some variation back of, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Or, I haven't thought of that. Now, what I know I've just done is I've stepped into a zone that nobody else on the planet ever has for them. I have now differentiated myself from anybody else. And so going back to the spin selling and what you're talking about, the game of coming in prepared to ask good probing questions is one of the best tools that a lawyer or anybody can use, because it's all about discovery and it's got to be all about them. And I've heard so many clients who say, my gosh, these people, they just talked about themselves and their capabilities and their past cases, and they don't know anything about me.
Yep.
And everybody wants to talk about themselves. So ask good questions and get people to talk.
Because I would venture to say that a large percentage of attorneys may possibly maybe be type A personalities. And then to your point about, I see the problem, I can fix it, let's go. Sometimes people, that's not a part of their buying sequence. They want to because people, the old saying, Jeffrey Gitomer made it popular, people like to buy, but they do not like to be sold. So you need to come up with, hey, in a simple term, I'm an educator and I'm an advocate to help you. So let me hear about your problem. Hey, here's something to consider, and you could do it this way or that way, but here's something else. And I think that when people can feel like they're heard and they're understanding what you're saying, now they're kind of really vibing with you that way.
Well, and even let me take this up a couple of notches. And, there's a couple levels of selling. One is the lawyer who is trying to attract a client or a referral source.
Yeah.
But let's even go macro here, which is talking about somebody who's running a law firm, and they've got to make a sale. They've got to sell the people inside their law firm to do what we want them to do. And this goes back to my whole concept of an overall law firm-wide culture shift.
Yeah.
And the way that I look at these things is I break a firm down into 4 levels. You've got the senior leaders of the firm. They have to do what they need to do to drive the bus and set the tone. They have to understand what the internal culture is like. They have to get together as a team to determine where they think things need to go, because very often these teams are not really on the same page, nor are they good with communicating whatever they have come up with. And then they've also got to adjust compensation to be able to make sure that the behaviors they're asking for are actually getting rewarded throughout the organization. So you've got that kind of stuff. Then you've got another level in there for the mid-level leaders inside of a firm. And so these are the practice group leaders, the department heads. They have things they need to do to drive the bus. And these, to me, are maybe the most important people in the firm, because they are the ones who drive the many. They are what they call, the direct report leaders. And so if we're really trying to get the lawyers to move and act and think in a certain way, it's their direct supervisor that has the influence over them. So to me, the practice group leader, the head of the litigation group, the head of whatever, they have tremendous power and influence, but nobody's ever trained them how to be good sales managers. And, that's a phrase I'm not uncomfortable saying inside of a law firm. I mean, some people don't want to be thinking of themselves that way, but it is a hat they wear. They have to manage the marketing, the selling, and the client service behaviors of their lawyers. And in many law firms, I've heard it said, it's a hotel for lawyers. It's not a coordinated dance of synchronized swimming. This is just people who come in, they do their thing, and they leave, and they are not collaborating and working as a team. So leaders have an incredibly important role to try to bring people together. And then you've got the individual lawyers themselves. That's level 3 for creating a culture shift. What do they need to do? Are we giving them the training that they need to be strong at business development? Do they understand what client service really looks like at a high level? And then, one of the biggest missed opportunities inside of a law firm is having to do with cross-selling. So when I'm in a firm that's a medium to large law firm, there are clients that are only using 1, 2, or 3 maybe practice areas, yet they are using law firms for 5 or 10 or 15 different areas.
Yeah.
And so that's low-hanging fruit that it's a skill. It seems logical, go ask them for the work. But there's a skill set in there. I've actually built technology to help support that because it's so important. So there's a lot there, and then there's this professional staff, support staff, and the roles that they can play to help lock everything in, track behavior, pipelines, just play the game of reminder. There's just so many levels to this that it's just not seen. A lot of firms, they're really trying to put a management structure in, but there's a layer and a filter around everything we need to do to drive a culture of business development. Those elements are not necessarily seen or woven together into an integrated whole.
I think that we could probably talk for about 14 more hours and be scratching the surface. But you said something that made me think of this. A main partner in a law firm could think, yeah, we need this. And so, you know what? Betty, hire us the best sales manager out there. We need to get business development. And they think that check, the box is checked. We got a sales manager coming in, and you think that you've solved your business development issue, but guess what? That it's not gonna. It's kind of like the foundation of business development, the culture of business development is not set. You can't just fix that. It's kind of like putting a fresh coat of paint on a dilapidated, condemned house. The structure's not there. It's going to crumble. So you've got to have both. In reality, probably a business development type attorney because they know the lingo and know the culture. But that culture of the firm must be dialed in to, like you're saying, to business development, and then sure, you can bring that business development type person in. But guess what? I'll bet you can point your finger to hundreds and thousands of times where a partner is out at a mixer and their ears were perked up to something that was going on. It's not a sales event, but they go, "Oh, you're having trouble with it? Call me next week. I think I might," and boom, that's business development. But in reality, you just got your radar turned on.
I mean, that's what the game is. And the sales force inside of a law firm typically are the lawyers. Yeah. And there are some firms that are supplementing that by bringing in sales professionals whose job it is to go knock on doors, find opportunities, and then they bring the lawyers in. So it's a very intelligent model. I think the leverage of that is very smart. But you still, what did I hear? I heard some statistic yesterday that on average people meet about 10,000 people in their lives. And so it's a lot of business development opportunity. And so if you're like you said, if your radar's up and you're listening, then number 2, if you're armed with good probing questions, and then number 3 is the next step. So back to spin selling, they talked about the number 2 most important factor after probing questions is getting a next step. Because you and I might have a brilliant conversation, Mike, and then at the end, hey, great conversation. We should do this again sometime. Yeah, we should. Okay, bye.
Have you ever heard of BAM FAM?
I have not. No.
BAMFAM. Book a meeting from a meeting. So
nice.
But you're exactly right. It's like, we ought to do that. Hold up. Grab your calendar. What does next Thursday look like? Because and here's the other thing that I feel like many people would struggle with. You see all this opportunity, you just want to drop it on them, all in this one thing, and it's like too much, dude. Just stop. So you really need to have those sequence of questions and listen, and some probing questions, good, and then go, you know what you said made me think of something really interesting. Let's circle back around for a coffee next week or for a phone call. Do you have some time? And the person might even have been fine with going, no, let's just talk now. But in reality, you're setting the stage, setting the hook. So I think that's a really big piece is the business is there. It'll come. But if you push too hard, people then their tendency is what? To push back.
Well, and also, you're hit on something that's important because 2 sides of it. 1, the prospect themselves will have that resistance. Number 2 is the individual lawyer. They want to be a million miles away from being perceived as a salesperson. So, with the BAM-FAM model, you have to be finessing that to arm them with things to do and say in a way that they would feel comfortable. Yep. And so hey, that's great, let's meet next Thursday, that might scare the heck out of them. But it might be, Mike, you talked about X. I happen to have a partner who's really good at that area. Should I get the two of you together? Now,
exactly. That's a good cross-sell. Or you could say,
yes.
Hey, there's some research that I just know came out about that, or some cases. I'm going to go back and I'm going to pull that together for you, and then I'm going to run over it with you. So do you think maybe a phone call or a coffee? So whether it's you bringing more value, educational value to them, or referring to a partner for the cross-sell, yeah, you're exactly right. Because everyone's favorite radio station is what?
The WIIFM.
Yes, you're one of the only ones that have ever known this. I learned it years ago from Brian Tracy. WIIFM. What's in it for me? And if we, as marketers, business development professionals, can advertise, tune in on that, man, our people we're talking to, they don't care about us and what we do. They care about them.
Well, this is why the probing questions are so important. And I heard one person say, you've got one mouth, two ears, please use them in proportion.
Yep.
Try to get these people talking at least 2/3 of the time, because they're going to think you are the most brilliant person because you got them talking. So yeah, it's these techniques, and so it's the micro techniques of the individuals on the ground and what they need to do. It's the macro techniques of what the law firm needs to do as the wizards behind the curtain to be able to put things in place that encourage the behaviors. And, I've often seen situations where firm leaders will, pound on the table and say, you've got to go out there and cross-sell more. We need more revenue, this and that, and things don't change.
Yep.
And then they blame the lawyers. Yep. Well, anybody in organizational development will realize, no, it's not their fault. It's your fault. Because if you're not getting those behaviors, you're not putting things in place that elicited those behaviors. Yeah. So just because you said it doesn't do it. You've got to be, again, that wizard behind the curtain to put in place the mechanisms that get people motivated. And it's all about motivation, inspiration, collaboration, just really tapping into some of the intrinsic values and needs of people so that they are excited, it's aligned with their values, they want to do it. And that takes a lot of work, a lot of thinking, and a lot of finesse. And that's why this whole go back to 30,000 foot and look at we need to shift a culture and what are the elements that need to be in place to be able to activate the behaviors we want. It's a dance, and it needs to be integrated together in many ways.
So I want to ask a question, but before I do, I want to ask a couple good probing questions to set the stage. So here we go. How many years have you spent in culture change, business development, marketing, sales? How many years, if you would pick a number, just a pretty close estimate?
Well, just law firms alone, it's been about 25 years.
Okay. And then let's just pick a book, a number. How many books have you read or programs have you attended around the same thing? Legal, marketing, business development. Would it be 1? Would it be 10,000? Would it be 50?
Yeah. Well, I go to so many of the industry conferences, speaking at them, listening, and so, it's scores and scores.
Innumerable.
Yeah,
and it's part of your DNA. You live and breathe this, and
it's my job. I feel like my job is an aggregator and an interpreter.
Yes.
So I need to bring together, like now, Bam Fam. That's going to find its way into my work.
Good.
Because now it's something. Yep, I appreciate that, and because it's sticky. It's an idea, and I've seen where. Sales trainers per se will come into a law firm and they don't understand law firm life. And they're using techniques that might work in another realm, but it's just not interpreting. You've got to make it fit for the lawyer mindset and the reality. So that feels like very much what my job is.
And the point of my questions was this. You might have a senior partner at a large law firm that logically, intrinsically knows that they need help with their business development, and sure, their culture could take some polishing up, no big problems, but I follow you. So if they wanted to take it upon themselves to go, we need to do, I'm going to do it. And they're going to start learning, reading, attending, and really getting involved in this. Now, guess what happens? You've got 25 years on them. You've got tens of thousands of books and programs. And now the opportunity cost kicks in where they now are spending time on this at the expense of running their firm, closing client deals, or serving their clients. And the problem now is why don't we bring in someone in the highest and best use of that senior law firm partner's time is running the law firm and knowing, kind of like how Henry Ford was known for saying, I don't know the answer to it, but I've got someone on my team that does. So now here comes someone like yourself that goes, all right, I know the culture, the lingo, I know all of the stuff here. Let me get acclimated with your culture of this firm. Yeah, here's how I would recommend this. And you become the guide, the mentor, the sensei to guide them through this process, to work with their team, to give them these tactics that they can go, you know what? I don't have to think about it. I don't have to understand. I understand it, but I don't have to do it. David is guiding us, and we can follow what he says because it just resonates with, he knows our world.
Yeah, I mean, this is what we would hope for in our trusted advisors, the people who have geeked out in a certain area. They have focused in, they've niched into a certain area. I mean, everything I do is all about revenue. So that's what I care about.
Yeah.
Financial statements and all that stuff, that's for somebody else. General leadership skills to become a good leader, conflict resolution, and, that's for somebody else. I care about training leaders to be sales managers. I care about turning lawyers into rainmakers. I care about looking at the slice of a firm that turns their revenue spigot on. And so, I've built tools. I've got a free culture assessment tool that a firm can use that they give to their lawyers, and lawyers can anonymously respond to this. It takes them about 4 minutes, and now you've got a snapshot of the lawyer's perceptions of the culture, which is an amazing running start, because then you could go, wow, our lawyers are telling us that we suck here, here, and here. Let's go focus.
Yep.
And, a lot of this is where you were going before, and I'll extrapolate. You might get a managing partner, a senior lawyer, whatever, and they go, here's what I think we need to do, because they came back from a conference, or they're, highly observant people, that's fine, but they may not really be hearing the voice of the firm. So, again, doing this for 25 years, so there's a lot of tools in the kit to be able to go in, find what's going on, and then find the leverage points to be able to, get the cascade to start. There's a great book called The Power of Habit. And what I love about this book, he opens with a story about a woman who really wanted to change her life. She was overweight, I think smoking, this, like a million things she wanted to change. Nobody can change all their habits. Right? Doing it all at one time, almost impossible to do. But what he talks about is this concept of the keystone habit, to find the one thing that you will do, and then that starts to cascade other changes. So I think in the story, this woman took up running. And because she took up running, she started to say, well, I think I probably should eat better because I really want to feel better running. And, I should probably cut back on the cigarettes because I can't run as much if I'm doing it. And then that was the thing that started the cascade for other things. Yeah. That's what I find is the creative part of this art form, is not just walk in and slap a program in, but to understand really where is the button that could be pushed that then, or, hit the domino, so to speak, that knocks down all the other dominoes. That gets to be the fun of the analytical side of this game, and then, of course, the execution of actually getting it done.
And many times, if not every time, people internal to the organization are too close to it. They can't see the forest for the tree. So having that external perspective, like the assessment that you mentioned. So what I'd like to do is wrap up with what's the best way that someone can reach out, connect with you, read a copy of your book, take this assessment, and learn a little bit more about how you help law firms with their business development and improving and changing their culture.
Yeah, thank you. Basically, if they just go to the website, lawfirmcultureshift.com, you could play around in there. You could see the different things that are going on. There's a contact button in there, so it's easy. Otherwise, it's David at lawfirmcultureshift.com. And always happy to have conversations about this. The Culture Xray tool is a free tool, so it's a great way for a firm to get a snapshot of what's important to them. And always happy to talk about this stuff. We spend a career doing something, and when you talk to other people that care, it's great energy back and forth to be able to share the things that one has collected over a long period of time.
Wonderful. Well, David, it's really great having you on and learning about your business, and really neat to see your perspective. So thank you for your time coming on today.
Well, and again, thank you for inviting me. This was a great program. Thank you.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneurssradio.com.